Hello. This week we're going to be looking at public service announcements, also known as PSAs. And I'm using this format to communicate because, well, it's fun and I can hide my face, which these days, who doesn't want a little more privacy? So I'm using this. So what is a public service announcement? Well, it's like an advertisement, but from a non-commercial entity. That means it's from an organization that is not making money. They're not selling anything. So in this presentation, we're going to be covering three main things. We're going to be doing an overview of PSAs. What are they? We're going to look at various examples and some of the issues that they have faced over time. Then at the end, we're going to be looking at your next assignment, and I will give you an example to study from. Okay, so this is the first PSA we're going to look at. Look carefully at this picture. What do you notice about it? Immediately, our attention is grasped by this image of an X-ray of the body, but something is different about it. There's something strange in the middle that shouldn't be there. And if you look carefully, you'll see that it is actually a seat belt, an unbuckled seat belt. What would this image be telling us? Well, this is a public service announcement about buckling your seatbelt when you're in a car. The idea here is that if you don't buckle your seatbelt, it's like your spine might be unbuckled or damaged. Phone call in the middle of my presentation. Don't you just love that? Okay, so the idea here is that if it's unbuckled, it's like being in an accident and having your spine broken. So this PSA is trying to warn us about the dangers of driving without a seatbelt. It's saying, please wear your seatbelt. Okay, next, look at this image. It's a little unusual as well. Doesn't that look like a fish? But it's also a cigarette. This PSA was created by the Surfrider Foundation, and it's a PSA about not littering your tobacco trash and how throwing your cigarettes on the ground can lead into the water and go downstream to the ocean. If you remember Finding Nemo, all streams lead to the ocean. Next, this is a rather grotesque PSA. If you read the text, it says, "You'll never worry about lipstick on your teeth again." Well, this person isn't worried about that because they have much bigger problems. Their teeth are rotting. They have skin issues. This is an image of a meth addict, or what's supposed to be a meth addict. And this PSA is about drug abuse of methamphetamines, and it is warning you of the dangers of methamphetamine abuse. There's also video examples of PSA. PSAs can be videos as well, and advertisements. Growing up in America, there was many commercials on TV when I was young, and sometimes there would be a PSA mixed in. So what we're going to watch here is an example of a PSA, a commercial type PSA, a video PSA from America.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
So that American public service announcement was about not littering or throwing trash to keep America clean. It's very famous. You may have seen the crying tear Native American image as a meme on the internet. It has become very popular. So that's an example of one from America. So this one's actually going to be in French, even though it's from Canada, it's from French-speaking Quebec. So enjoy.
On sait qu'il ne faut pas prendre le volant après avoir bu, mais certains croient qu'il est acceptable de conduire après avoir pris des drogues. La police a les pouvoirs et les outils pour déterminer si les conducteurs sont affaiblis par des drogues licites ou illicites. Ces conducteurs présentent un risque tout aussi élevé que ceux en état d'ébriété et sont exposés aux mêmes pénalités, perte du permis, casier judiciaire, amende et plus encore. Un message de la GRC, arrivé sain et sauf, et l'Association canadienne des chefs de police.
So we could see one there where we learned about the dangers of using substances and driving. They didn't mention anything about the substances being illegal specifically. They were concerned with the driving while under the influence. That's called a DUI, driving under the influence, which is illegal in Canada. So this was a public service announcement warning people to be careful. Next, we're going to be looking at whether or not something is a PSA or propaganda. We're going to be looking at PSAs with a more critical eye. There are some issues which we have to recognize when we're dealing with a PSA. First is that PSAs can be affected by cultural norms. So in one culture, eating whale meat might be considered to be a very negative, amoral act. They might create a public service announcement which is anti-whaling. However, in other cultures, it may be simply another delicious food. Yum, whale meat. So that's something to consider. PSAs can be affected by politics. What is your opinion on firearms? You might be of the political persuasion that firearms are a right, part of your constitutional right, and important for protecting yourself and your country. Others might consider firearms to be an unnecessary danger. Also, PSAs might be affected by changing social attitudes on controversial topics. What many may have considered to be quite outrageous in the past may be being more accepted in the present. One example of this is cannabis in the United States. In 1936, a famous film, Reefer Madness, was shown in theaters across the country. This movie did a lot to vilify and scare people away from marijuana use. However, in the mid-70s and 80s, another series of films did the exact opposite and made marijuana into a fun and relatively harmless substance. In the 90s, marijuana became quite ubiquitous. You may recognize some of the people on the cover of High Times magazine, a magazine which promotes marijuana use and discusses cultivation and various aspects of the marijuana culture. Here's an overview of the PSAs regarding marijuana use in America between the 1960s and the present.
At this time, there are no known damaging physical effects from the use of marijuana. You wouldn't dare to do this on pot. People are not primarily concerned with the ethics or morality of the use of marijuana have provided their expert knowledge to our legislators, which in turn has caused them to pass laws to make marijuana illegal. What you do with your life is up to you. If you become a pothead, you risk blowing the most important time of your life, your teenage.
Shotgun.
What's happening here is also happening to some extent at virtually every other American installation in Vietnam.
I shall continue to oppose efforts to legalize marijuana.
support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
Marijuana could very well be one of the most dangerous threats to an entire generation of Americans of any drug that we know.
There's no moral middle ground. Indifference is not an option. Say yes to your life. And when it comes to drugs and alcohol, just say no.
If you go ahead and try them, at least it won't be out of ignorance. Just stupidity. What would I do if someone offered me these drugs? I'd tell them to take a hike.
This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
You finally got to wear your shoes the right way. You're making your own decisions. So don't blow this one. Don't smoke pot.
If you sell drugs, you will be caught. And when you're caught, you will be prosecuted. And once you're convicted, you will do time.
In England, I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it, and didn't inhale, and never tried it again.
We are determined to build the drug-free America and to join with others to combat drugs around the world.
Dumb.
Stupid.
Crazy. Dangerous.
Stinks. In one word, would I use dope? Nope. There's no hope with dope.
And maybe the dealers aren't scared of the police. But they're not scared of me. And they sure don't take no for an answer.
To Kevin Scott and all the other kids who take the long way home.
Because we about to get high up. Yeah.
So there you have PSAs over time. This video was made in 2014 by the Washington Post. Currently, cannabis is legal in 47 states in the United States, so attitudes have certainly changed over time. So here's the most recent cannabis PSA I could find.
Is there anyone out there that still isn't clear on what cannabis does? Okay, last time. This is your brain. This is cannabis. This is your brain on cannabis. Any questions?
Okay, for your next assignment, you are going to do a presentation on a PSA that you choose, your choice. And I'm going to give you an example now of such a presentation by going through one PSA very carefully. When you do your presentation, you're going to be using the same 6 questions that we used for advertisements. Who created the message being sent? What techniques were used to attract my attention? How might other people understand or interpret this message differently from me? What points of view or values are omitted from this message? Why was this message being sent? And how might the information presented be exaggerated or misleading? So here's your example. We're going to be looking at a PSA from 1987 titled Brain on Drugs. And we're going to be analyzing it using the 6 questions. Here we go.
Is there anyone out there who still isn't clear about what doing drugs does? Okay, last time. This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
Okay, so yes, I have 6 questions. First, who created the message being sent? Well, this message was sent by the Partnership for a Drug-Free America. This is a New York City-based nonprofit organization which runs campaigns to prevent teenage drug and alcohol abuse in the United States. It started in the early 1980s, but it still exists today. TV Guide, a famous magazine in America which talked about television shows and TV personalities, named this commercial one of the top 100 television advertisements of all time. Everyone in my generation saw this growing up. So, my next question is, what techniques were used to attract my attention? Well, first, if you notice, there's no special music, there's no special lighting. The image is very cold and stark. Furthermore, the egg was associated with the human brain, my brain, our brain, your brain, and then violently cracked and thrown into a pan to fry. That is a shocking image. Next, how might other people understand or interpret this message differently from me? Well, interestingly enough, the American Egg Board had an issue with this PSA because they did not like their product, the egg, being associated with unhealthy drug use. My first question is, what drugs? There are